You have to give Dacia the credit that it deserves because it's built a real band of followers with their approach to how they build cars. Now, at one stage, Dacia was a brand that was budget and best left forgotten about, but not now. Now they've got some real appeal with them, and they appeal to people that just want sensible cars at sensible prices to do the sensible everyday jobs that you need from a car. The Sandero is a decent little super mini. The Jogger, well, it's a car that I reckon could be the best car in the real world in some respects when it comes to what it can offer families. And then of course there's the Duster, a brilliant little SUV that just would have you questioning why you would ever need anything more if you wanted an SUV. But what if you needed something more in terms of space? You like the idea of the Duster, but you need something bigger. What can Dacia offer you? Well, they can offer you something bigger, and they've called it that as well, because if you need something bigger, there's now the Bigster, which is a really silly name for an absolutely brilliant car. And to put it through a real world road test review this week, I've brought it on a bit of a road trip. Welcome to this week's road test review. Welcome to the new Dacia Bigster. Please sit yourself down, make yourself comfortable in the house of cars. Now, before I start on this week's review of the Dacia Bigster, it is of course the time where I have to ask a small favour of you. Now, if you're a regular viewer, you're probably bored of me asking, but if you're new to the channel, it's important I do ask. If you are new to the channel and you're not already a subscriber, would you consider becoming one, please? And then when you've done that, press the bell button that's down below, because that means you'll be notified when the next video is uploaded and it's gone live. Once you've watched the review, if you enjoy it, and I sincerely hope you do, make sure you give it a little thumbs up. And then of course, as always, don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about the cars that I feature on the channel, such as the Dacia Bigster, and of course on the House of Cars channel overall. Now, before I do start the review, I've got a little bit of an explanation about this road test review, because normally when I film a review, I start at the beginning, as you've just seen, and then I work my way through all the different chapters that you'll see me go through, and then we have the summary at the end. But I filmed this in a slightly higgledy-piggledy way because I'm somewhere, well, in foreign climes at the moment, and let me explain. I got a phone call not that long since ago from the guys at Renault that said, we're opening up this new sort of like museum of old Renaults. We're going to call it the Renault Collection. Would you like to come and see it for its opening ceremony? I said, I'd love to. It sounds fantastic. And it's down at the Renault factory in Flan in France, which is a significant place for Renault. And I said, that's great, I'd love to do that. And they said, well, we'll get the train down, we'll get the Eurostar out of London, and we'll go down to Paris. And I went, ooh, hang on a second, guys. I've got the Dacia Bigster booked in. Is there a possibility that I could drive down? And they said, absolutely no problem at all. We'll see you there. So that's what I've done. I drove the Bigster from my house in Surrey all the way down to Flan in France, okay? Because I wanted to put it through a proper road test review. It's all very well me driving it around the local areas in Surrey going, yeah, it's nice and it works. What's this car going to be like if you are, because this is the thing with this car, it's slightly different to what we've had from Dacia before in some respects. Now, the Jogger and the Duster reviews that I've already had on the channel are my second and third most watched videos, so it's clear that there's a love for the brand out there. But the cars, as practical as they are, you know, they're slightly smaller. You've got the Sandero, which is a super mini. The Jogger's sort of like, you know, okay, it's a 7-seater, but it's quite a small 7-seater in the sense. It's not a big hulking SUV. And the Duster is a B-segment SUV. So what happens is, say, if you like the idea of a Duster, you want sort of like a roughy-tufty SUV sort of vibe out of your car, but your kids aren't kids anymore, they're teenagers now. Or you go mountain biking at weekends and, you know, with your mates, and you need something bigger, you know, because you got 4 of you with mountain bikes in the back, or you go camping, or you go on holiday down to France. Now, normally, when you start looking at these bigger C-segment SUVs, things such as the Skoda Kodiaq, the sort of, you know, the Volkswagen Tiguan, you know, sort of like Hyundai Kodiaq, Kia Niro, things like that, you know, they are more expensive cars than what Dacia tend to offer. And now Dacia have an offering in that market space, and it's an important market space because it's the biggest selling in Europe. And the other thing with it is, obviously, there's an element of electrification that people want now with hybrids, and that's what I've got here. I've got the new hybrid version of the Bigster as well. The problem is, however, as you start to push up market into sort of like a market space you've not been before, you've also got to push up in size. So the car has grown, which means the price has grown as well. And dare I suggest the problem then becomes expectations grow as well. So can Dacia do big with the Bigster? Is it a good comparison with the likes of the Hyundais, the Skodas, the Volkswagens, you know, the Kias of the world? Or are they going to struggle to make a real impact into this market with something like the Bigster? Well, as I say, to find out, I've brought it on a proper road trip down to France to do this week's review. So I hope you enjoy it. However, before we start the full review, as always, let's take a look at the main points of the new Dacia Bigster. So initially shown as a concept in 2021, the Bigster is Dacia's entrant into the C SUV market, the largest sector in Europe. It sits on the Renault Group's CMF-B platform that also underpins the Duster, as well as cars such as the Renault Clio, Captur and Symbioz. It has the choice of two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, depending on the engine chosen. There's a choice also of mild or full hybrids. And prices start at just over £25,000 and go all the way to just under £30,000, depending on model before options chosen. Which means that despite the fact that it's Dacia's largest and most expensive offering, it still undercuts the majority of its rivals by quite a few £1,000s. So have they cut some corners? Let's stick it through a House of Cars road test review and find out. Now, as always, we start with how the car looks. Now, as I say, this sits on the CMF-B platform, and that underpins a lot of the Renault Group's products, such as the Captur, the Symbioz, obviously the Duster. So it'd be very easy to turn around and sort of like say, ah, well, it's just a sort of stretched Duster then, isn't it? A long wheelbase Duster. It's not. It drives very differently to the Duster in a lot of ways. Well, we'll see that, obviously, as we go around it. But it shares a lot of commonality with the styling, but only because it's sort of Dacia styling direction. It's a different car. It's not just the same sort of like car as a Duster, sort of like stretched that way. Now, as I say, it's the same width as the Duster, but it's longer and it's taller. And there's an area around the front you can see that it is quite different to the Duster. You still get the Dacia styling theme of the Y shapes. Now, you'll see lots of that as you go around the car and on the inside as well. And of course, you've got your white DC badge there that's really nice. I really like the sort of like styling of Dacia. It's still got that sort of square-jawed sort of like look about it like the Duster has, but it's grown up a little bit. It's not quite the kind of roughy-tufty Tonka toy look that's at the front of the Duster, I think. It looks a little bit more in line with some of the more, well, the established brands. I say, I'm not that I'm saying Dacia's a new brand, but it's new to this marketplace, such as maybe Nissan Qashqai, Renault, because it's going to compete with Renault as well, the Symbioz as well. So as I say, it's not quite the kind of roughy-tufty looking SUV at the front, as you say, maybe see the Duster is, but as I say, it certainly shares a lot of the DNA with that styling. Well, as I say, first of all, there's your Y-shaped lights there. You've also got the sort of like the plastic trim round here. Now, this is a really interesting thing. It's called Starkle. And if you have a look at it, you'd swear that it's got something on it, but it's not. It's the way that the material is actually moulded, and it's dyed in the mass here. And it's made of recycled plastic, and it's also the same colour all the way through. So if the idea behind it is if you scratch it, which, let's be fair, it's a family car, scratch at the supermarket while you're parking at the railway station and take your kids to school, this will be the same colour underneath. Okay, so that's the whole idea behind it. But as I say, it's got this little fleckle through it, and it's a really nice finish. I love this on it here. The other bit that's dyed in the mass is the front and rear skid plates, and again, that's to keep costs down as well. So this sort of like titanium finished plastic down here and at the back as well, that's the same, and it's designed to keep costs down. So it's not painted plastic, it's dyed in that colour. So as I say, it doesn't have to be painted, and if it has to be replaced, you just buy the same one coloured. You don't then have to take it to a paint shop to get it done. So again, it's keeping costs down, and that's important. When we talk about the interior as well, there's another element of Dacia that we need to think about. 20% of that interior is made from recycled materials. They've even gone to the point of the owner's manual is non-existent basically. So they're cutting down on the use of paper. Everything's done online. Simple little thing, but very, very clever, I think. Anyway, back to the styling. I really like this car. I love the big castellations you get on the bonnet, the way the bonnet's really sculpted, because I say it gives it this sort of tall SUV look, and again with the driving position it makes you feel like you're in a much bigger car than you are. But as I say, it's not got the sort of like, you know, the butch off-roadery stuff at the front. It's a really interesting blend, and this is a new colour that you get just on the Bigster called indigo blue, and this one's got the two tones. It's indigo blue and black, and I'm never really keen on sort of like two-tone with black at the top and a dark blue there, but it just seems to work on this car. There's a neatly integrated little camera there, just embedded between the D and the C, and the badge there. You obviously get a nice sort of like the chevroned grille at the top there. You get a much deeper sort of like front opening grille down there. Obviously things such as parking sensors across the front. There's a front sensor as well for distance guided cruise control. Neat, crisp lines. Looks a bit bigger, more mature looking than the sort of like the Duster, but still giving that sort of like proper big SUV off-road vibes. I really like the look of this car. In design alone, I think this is giving the competition a run for its money before we've even started. So, C-segment SUV, as I say, Nissan Qashqai, you know, Skoda Kodiaq, those style of cars, 4.5 metres long, 1.7 metres tall, 22 centimetres of ground clearance. Now, we're going to talk about the mechanical setup when we move into the technical section. You can get the car with an all-wheel drive transmission, but not with this hybrid 155 that I've got here. Now, there's 3 trim levels available. You start with the Expression, which comes on 17-inch alloy wheels. Then you move to the 2 range toppers. Now they sit sort of side by side, if you like. You either go for the Extreme, which gets 18-inch wheels and, dare I suggest, a more off-roady style of look to the car, or you go for this, the Journey, which is more kind of city slicker, a little bit more sort of like toned down on some of the off-road stuff, but it gets the 19-inch alloy wheels on this one. The other difference is with these sort of like roof rails here, the Extreme gets the sort of like detachable modular ones where you can take them off and put them across the way, so it's easier to load up things such as, you know, bike racks, roof tents, you know, kayak things. You can still get them as an option on the Journey, but as I say, if you want them as standard, then you go to the Extreme. And we're going to talk an awful lot about sort of like the sensible stuff that Dacia build into the cars. You can really notice that sparkle on the plastic wheel arch extensions. As I say, you do think it's all speckled and there's something on it, but it's not. That's how it's built. And the whole thing is made from 20% recycled materials, and it itself can be 100% of it can be recycled as well. Good tyres on the car, as you'd expect. There's Michelin rubber on the car, as I say, 19-inch wheels on this particular one. You've got almost this nod to the snorkel at the side here on this one here, with sort of like, you know, a little bit of the Dacia sort of logo and graphic in there, which I quite like. I like that on it. Good sized door mirrors. Downside is they create a lot of wind noise. We'll talk about that when we drive it. Hidden door handle in the rear. They're obviously 5-door car. Look again, you know, mud flaps just in front of the wheel, and you get your little recycled logo just in front of that there. There's your other Y shape on the side. See it? I didn't realise it at first, but of course there it is. You've got the Bigster thing there, and then it opens up into that Y-shaped rear window. Simple and really subtle. I do like that. And obviously privacy glass on the back. And I say this is the 2-tone car. I really like this car. I really, really like it. We've not even talked about how it drives yet. Now you move around the back, and again, you know, Y-shaped lights. There you go. See, real subtle stuff. And then you get the sort of, I don't know, the sort of graphic, sort of like chevron almost style, sort of diagonals across the boot plinth as well. You got the Dacia lettering across the back there, but of course Bigster and Hybrid are done in decals rather than badges. Again, keeping costs down. If the car has a bump from the back, you don't need to start buying loads of different badges. You just buy a decal kit if you're repairing the tailgate. See, simple stuff. And then again, more of that Starco material on the rear bumper, and again that dyed in the mass lower section there. Neatly integrated reverse camera that you get in there. Still a lot of tech on the car because it's part of Renault Group. Huge amount of safety equipment on the car, you know, advanced driver assistance systems. And of course it comes with Renault's My Perso button where you can turn some of them off. Roof spoiler. Really nice the way it sort of like dips in just in the middle there, and then your high mounted brake light there, and of course a rear wiper, which keeps me pleased. And again, it sits quite high off the deck, doesn't it? So, you know, if you are going for the all-wheel drive version and you are off-roading with it, you know, approach, departure and breakover angles are some of the best in its class. As I say, design wise, I think it's an absolute winner. I really like the look of this car, I really do. Personally, I prefer the Extreme model. I actually quite like the sort of like, you know, the more off-roady look of the car, believe it or not. I quite like SUV, so that sort of suits me. But I have to admit, this journey's turned a few heads on the journey, if you'll pardon the expression, you know, on the way down here. Had a couple of people come up to me in the Eurotunnel yesterday going, is that the new Bigster? I'm actually, this is the Renault factory here in Flan in France, you know, and there's a couple of guys come over and had a look round it because they thought it was a Duster at first and they realised it's the Bigster. So they've come and had a look round it. So I like it, they like it, but do you like it? Because you're the guys that matter. You're the guys that are out there buying these cars. Would you have this over a Nissan Qashqai? Would you have this over a Skoda Kodiaq? Would you have this over a Volkswagen T-Roc? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Little nod to the moving up market. Electric tailgate. Allegedly, people in this market space, especially in Europe, expect an electric tailgate, which is why it's fitted. Now, the boot space, it will depend obviously on the model that you go for and its driveline as to the size of your boot. I've got the Hybrid 155. This is the smallest boot that's in the car, okay? And it's still 612 litres. That's a huge amount of space. And as I say, I'll talk about it just in a second. But then if you go for the 4x4, if you go for the hybrid, and not the big hybrid, but the mild hybrid 4x4, then it goes up to 629 litres. If you go for the two-wheel drive mild hybrid, then that goes up to 677 litres. Massive amount of rear space. And if you fold down the 40-20-40 split, it takes total capacity up to 1,977 litres. Hugely practical car, this. Really practical. Now, as I was saying earlier, this is the thing about Dacia I really like about them. They're sort of thinking along the lines that Skoda do, you know, when it comes to how people use their cars, you know, in terms of family cars and things. So silly things, so I know a lot of cars do have it, but the fact you can obviously flip the rear seats down from the boot, you know, you just pull this tab, you know, and it flips down the rear seat. You've got underfloor storage, which in this car also has a space saver spare wheel. It's got a space saver spare wheel. But yeah, you've got a variable height. You can take that out and store stuff down in there, so that's excellent as well. Plus you've got 12-volt socket there, plus you've got little hooks up in there, plus you have what's called U-clip. Okay, now you'll see there's more of this on the inside of the car. There's little square, sort of, for want of a word, pegs, little mouldings round the car that you can clip various different accessories that you buy from Dacia to it. So if you want, I don't know, like a bigger hook, a bigger shopping, you can buy that in there. You know, there's one in the interior that's for a phone holder. There's various different things that you can buy for that will clip onto these U-clip mounting points, again, just to make your life a bit sort of like simpler and easier. And you buy the stuff that you need. You don't have to move up in trim levels to get, oh, I need that accessory, I'm going to need to move up to the top of the range trim level, but all I want is the basic one. Buy the basic one and buy the accessory you need. That's what I like about it. That's what makes sense to me. The other thing about the boot is there's not a lot of wheel arch intrusion into it, so it does go quite, you know, there's a little bit of storage at the side here where you can drop things into, you know, such as obviously my safety pack because I'm travelling abroad, you know, that just sits down in the side there. But the flat entry into it when the boot's in its highest height is nice as well, plus it's plastic, so you're scraping luggage in here. Obviously I don't have my suitcases, I've just got an overnight bag, but you know, you're just loading suitcases in there, and it just it's nice and easy load entry in. And as I say, the fact that you've got the 40-20-40 split rear seat makes it a lot easier because you can still have the two passengers either side and fold down that centre section if you're carrying things back from the garden centre, the DIY centre. So that's another thing that I really, really like about the car. Plus as well, the luggage blind, you know, you can have it in various different sort of like different sections depending on, and it's just a nice sort of like, you know, not flimsy, but you know what I mean, it's not a hard plastic cover, you know, so again it rolls away neatly, and obviously you can just take it out, you know, if you're not needing it. So yeah, it's a massively practical car, this as well. Plus obviously you've got towing capabilities as well with it if you do want to add a tow bar on it. So it's a really, really practical family car. which means rear space and rear accommodation is really good as well. Now, that's my driving position. I'm 5'8". You can see there, loads of legroom. By the way, I'm just about to melt here. I'm in the middle of France and it's June and it's 30 degrees outside today. It's a bit warm. Loads of space back here. That seat is in the lowest position because that's how I drive. So I've got the seat all the way down and I can dance almost. There's so much room under the seat there. So there's plenty of foot room. You also sit quite high in the back. So you've got that sort of stadium style seating so the kids won't feel too car sick because they sit higher than the front two passengers, which is nice. They get a good view forward as well. You've obviously got decent headroom. There is the option of a panoramic sunroof if you do want it. I think it's the first time Dacia have offered one, but again, the market that this car is going to sell into, it's something that would be expected, so you can have it with a panoramic sunroof. I'm sort of glad I don't have it today, if I'm being blunt about it, because it would be beating down in here. You've got the cloth seat back pockets just there. You've got some they're quite narrow. They're quite narrow in their width of the door bins, but they go down a bit, but you wouldn't get a water bottle into them. You do have face vents in the back. You do have connectivity with 2 USB-C ports there, plus, as I say, there's one of your other little U-clip things there. Again, your nice little things like you got the coat hooks that are up on the pillars there, and some really nice little soft lights, interior lights just embedded into the ceiling there. Now, this centre section folds down, as I said to you, which is effectively then the armrest. So there's no actual armrest there, which is a bit of a shame because then this does feel like you're sort of into the boot if you're using it just as an armrest. But you know, you've got obviously things such as cup holders there, bottle holders. That one's smaller than the front one, but there you go, that fits in there. And it is the hard plastic, you know, because it's the back of the seat. So I suppose in some respects that's a little bit of a shame that you don't have a front armrest in some ways, but I understand the reason for it because they say it's more practical from that point of view, but maybe that's a wee downside when it comes to that. The other downside is Renault seem to be doing this, they're hiding the ISOFIX behind the zips, and I don't like that because to me zips are just going to break. And there you go. There's a bit of a transmission tunnel, but not massive, and considering that it's the same width as a Duster, it actually feels quite big in the back here. So again, if you do have 3 smaller children across the back of the back seat, or 3, you know, sort of like, you know, children and maybe 2 bigger teenagers and a smaller one, you know, there is enough room. It certainly feels like there is enough room for them, which is something that I didn't feel the Renault Symbioz when I test drove that, when I reviewed that car. I felt it failed a little bit. It felt quite narrow in the back. The Bigster doesn't. It feels quite wide across the back bench. So from that point of view, point to Dacia, but maybe a point deducted just for not having a little bit more storage in it. Still, you can buy extra cup holders and stuff like for your U-clip system, so maybe they claw a little bit back with that innovation there. Right, excuse the mounts, because obviously when I'm going to be driving back, I'm going to be filming various bits on the road, so they're all mounted up. So the dashboard, right, so very, very similar to the Duster in the sense that, you know, it's much sort of like harder plastics that you get in here. Now remember what I said, 20% of the interior is made from recycled plastics. Well, sustainability is a big thing for Dacia, and I think they've played to those strengths with the interior of this car. The other thing about it is, yes, there are cars in this class with much plusher interiors, but you know, I'm talking about family cars where you've got kids that might spill juice or chocolate or have an ice cream on a day like this that will drip onto your seats and things like that. So from that point of view, what I'll say is this: yes, the plastics are harder, but they don't feel cheap. Does that make sense? Everything feels solid and really well screwed together. So the actual material used, as I say, I don't mind so much because of the way that it's built, and dare I suggest because of the practicality of it. There's more of your Y-shapes on the design, see on the air vents there, and the same on the door handles. The door handles are sort of Y-shaped as well. Right, depending on the model that you go for will depend on how your interior looks, because you can have it with a manual gearbox as well, and with one of the lower spec engines. It'll have a lower console than this, so because this is the hybrid 155, this gets the much higher console with the little sort of like, you know, toggle shifter. It's in gear, hang on, sorry, it's started, so let me just, you know, so that's, you know, push forward for reverse, one back for neutral, back for drive, and then there's a brake another one back, so it's your regenerative braking, and then P for park. Okay, so that's what you got your stubby lever for there. Now, in terms of what you see here, all cars get this 10.1 inch infotainment screen, which I'll talk about in a second. Journey and Extreme models get a 10-inch driver's display, but the Expression model gets a 7-inch one, so it's a slightly smaller driver's display you get. You can adjust what you see from there. It's a bit more configurable, dare I suggest, than you get in the Duster, so you can scroll through various things using this button on the steering wheel here, and that'll show you various things. So it can either just have quite a basic display here, or if you press it more, you can then get more information, such as like an economy meter along the bottom. You press it again and you can have the navigation map up in there. Press it again and then you can have your ADAS system, you know, how far away you are from things. Press it again and then you go back to your more basic system. So you can really configure it how you want. You can then also change this little screen on the right here by using these up and down arrows. So this is where your trip computer is over here. Now what have I done? I've done just 300 miles since I left home. 299.5 miles I've done since yesterday in this car. And we'll talk about fuel economy a little bit later. Now, the fact it's starting and stopping at the moment is because it's the hybrid, okay? And it's not a plug-in hybrid, it's a normal sort of like hybrid system that's in the car, but we'll talk about it when I go into the technical side. Let's stick with the steering wheel for a minute, because that is a slightly flattened off top and bottom 3-spoke wheel. Synthetic leather, really nice steering wheel to hold. Now, the driving position, that's the next thing I want to discuss. The seats. Now, I read some reviews that said the seat comfort wasn't that great. Well, as I say, I did 300 miles in it yesterday and this morning, and I tell you what, the seats have been fine. The only problem I've got with it, and it was the same with the Duster, is where the footrest is on the left hand side. It's just a little bit too far up the transmission tunnel for me. Now obviously it's changed from a left hand drive car to a right, but for me it means I'm sitting with this leg at a slight kink, whereas that one's more extended on the accelerator. To me, that footrest needs to be another 2 inches down into the footwell. That's what I think would make the difference. What I found yesterday was I wasn't using it at all. I was just tucking my foot underneath the brake pedal. There's enough room in the footwell, you can do that, but it would just be nice to have the footrest in a position that I would expect it to be in. But the Duster was the same. You've got height adjustable seat, you've got reach and rake adjustment on the steering wheel. The seat squab is long enough for me. It'd be nice if I could tilt the seat, but I'm not complaining, because I say I don't feel like I'm sliding off it. It feels like there's enough support there. And then there's enough lateral support with the bolsters down the back. As I say, yesterday, Surrey to to Versailles, no problem at all in one fell swoop. Don't have an issue with it. Let's discuss this screen now, because I quite like this infotainment screen. And you know why I like it? Because it's quite basic. The more I'm sort of like using some of these cars that have got more basic infotainment screens, the more I like them, because we're having to use screens a lot more for cars, in cars, various different things switching on and off. So the simpler it is as I get older, I think almost the better. The icons are big. So you're driving along, there's your home, there's your media, there's your phone, there's your apps, there's your car settings. You can't fail to really hit those properly. And then they're laid out in the biggest sort of like grouping of them, if you like, is laid out in this 3x3 arrangement, okay? So it's quite easy just to go into it and find it. You're not going to hit it by accident, are you? So you get into your radio, you go into your Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which are standard and wireless, by the way. You can also go into the App Store as well. You can download more apps. Now, it doesn't use Google like Renault do, because I feel that maybe they're trying to maybe cut some costs, and B, they don't want to step on Renault's toes. That's maybe the only thing that would be quite nice. But the fact that you've got Apple CarPlay and you can use it, so you can use Google Maps if that's your way, you can do that. But you could download, say, Waze into here, for instance, if you want. You can download Spotify, Radio Player, Amazon Music. There's various different apps that you can have. You go and browse apps, music and audio. There's 3. There you go. Maps and navigation. Oh, I apologise. I said you could download Waze. I don't think you can. My apologies. But there you go, you can download other apps into it. Okay, right, so that's that. But you see what I mean? It's really just nice, the fact that it's so clear and easy just to touch when you're driving. This is the only bit you can really recognise from Renault, apart from the media stock, are these physical controls here, which are like the Megane and the Renault 5 and stuff, such like. So you get temperature control, physical temperature control either side, so it's dual zone climate. You've got your fan speed, maximum defrost to the front screen, heated rear screen, auto climate, air resuck, your aircon max, and then your direction control. So all of that's on a physical control. The only touchscreen controls that are in here, for instance, are things like for switching on your heated seats. Certainly don't need them today. And heated steering wheel. Oh, I've tucked that on. That's it. Okay. Oh, and yeah, heated steering wheel you get on the Journey and Extreme models as well. So there you go. So it's well equipped, isn't it? This screen as well has volume controls at the top there, as well as the media stock on the side here, this little third stock out on the side, which is the Renault media stock, which I love. If you've ever lived with this, it's just such a simple thing to use. You get volume buttons at the end, the source is a button on the top, and then your track searcher, your tuning is the scroll wheel on the back, and your hand doesn't leave the steering wheel as you use it. It's brilliant. The controls that are on the steering wheel, you've got cruise control over here, and then, as I say, you've got your configurable screens over here, and then things for like making phone calls and your voice recognition on this side. So I love this screen, I love the simplicity of it. It's up in your line of sight, it's really easy to see. I love the fact you've got physical controls for the things that you need at a quick reference to, such as heating and ventilation and radio controls. It's comfortable because I've done a long journey in the car and I know how comfortable it is. It's well equipped because the Journey's got heated seats, heated screen, it's got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, which are wireless. It's got a wireless charging pad in there. As I say, you've got a configurable screen, you've also got 4 electric windows, you've got all the adaptive driver assistance systems that you can shake a stick up, plus more, which are easy to turn off as well. Storage is good. You've got this big center section in here which has a cup holder thing in it. I must admit I took it out, and the reason being was, if I pop it back in, my Yeti one won't go through it, that's all. So I just took it out, and then it'll just sit in the tray. That's all it was. It's just that the opening isn't big enough for the Yeti, that's all. But you can take it out if you don't need it. That's brilliant. Obviously you've got a glove box. This centre armrest is refrigerated, so I've got my water being cooled that's in there, and you've got door bins which are also shaped for extra bottles at the front as well. Now they're not lined, but again, like the rest of the dash, they're very well built and they're very well screwed together and don't feel flimsy. So it's comfortable, it's well equipped, it's easy to use, it's sustainable, it's easy to live with, it's spacious. I'm not really sure that you could really fault it that much. Yes, there are other cars which are a bit plusher in the class, but if you're talking about a usable family car, what's not to like about this? Oh, and I haven't talked about one of the best things about it. This seat material that you get on the Extreme and the Journey. It's like the skin of a baby seal. I don't think it is, in fairness. I don't think they've made seals to make seats out of. But if you kids spill juice on that, it beads on it and you just wipe it off. It's effectively waterproof seat trim. Just something simple, and it's not, and it feels nice. And it's the same on the armrest. It's like a neoprene sort of material. And as you're sitting with your arm on it, it's cool it's not on a hot day, it's not a sticky leather or vinyl. It's really, really nice. I think this is as a working family car, this is absolutely perfect. Oh, sorry, I forgot that one last thing. That's the U-clip system. Sorry, let me show you this. So this here is the phone holder. Now I have to admit, when I got the car the other day and I first started driving it, there was a rattle and I couldn't imagine where the rattles come from. It was from this actually, because obviously this has been used a lot, But that's how it works. You've just got the little square hole in the back. You push the button and clip it on. That's it. Now obviously I don't need that because I've got my wireless charger in there and I've got the screen with the Apple CarPlay, but it works really, really well. But you can buy various different things for around the car using that system. So that I just put in the back. So for instance, if my daughter was in the car with us and she was in the back, I can just clip that phone holder on the back for her and she can watch her phone when she's in the back. Simple, yet brilliant. I love this car, I really do. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run you through the driveline options, then I'm going to talk at length about the car that I actually have. But if you've watched my Renault Symbioz review, you'll see a lot of that, or you'll hear a lot of familiar things, because it's the same. okay, because it sits on the same platform, it uses a lot of the same mechanicals as that car. Right, so the range starts with the mild hybrid 140, okay, which is a 1.2 litre 3-cylinder engine that drives the front wheels through a 6-speed manual gearbox, okay. So if you want a manual, that's your car, okay. 160 horsepower. You can also have that engine, but as the mild hybrid 130, which is also the 1.2 3-cylinder engine with a 6-speed manual gearbox, but that drives all 4 wheels, okay. So if you want the manuals, that's the two that you're looking at there. Then you get this car, which is the hybrid 155, okay. So this is only with an automatic transmission, but it's not quite a standard automatic, as I'll explain in a second. So this car is a 1.8 litre 4-cylinder engine, okay, and it gets a 1.4 kilowatt hour battery. Now it's not a plug-in hybrid, it's just a standard hybrid, okay, so the car charges itself. It's got 2 electric motors on it, okay, one that produces 50 horsepower on its own, that also powers the front wheels along with the engine. Talk about that in a second, and another which is a high voltage starter generator that lives in the gearbox, okay. So that's the 2 electric motors that it has. Now, like I say, it's a 6-speed automatic gearbox, but 4 gears are attached to the engine, a gearbox to the engine. There's 2 gears in that electric motor that's in there, so effectively that's where your 6 speeds come from, okay. And the car can go up and down different ratios, and it can use different ratios up to something like 15 different modes, depending on how it's driving, depending on you don't need to do anything, okay. You drive it like a normal car, like a normal automatic gearbox, and the car sorts itself out. The whole idea behind it is efficiency, and I'm going to talk about the fuel consumption in a second, okay, because by doing this, what they're saying is it increases efficiency by over 6% on the combined cycle compared with a standard hybrid. It's a really clever system, and what can happen is the car will drive as much as it possibly can on the electric motor, okay, but then obviously when it needs to, it'll kick the engine in, okay, and the engine will charge the battery. So you can have it in a state where the engine will charge the battery, which then feeds the electric motor, which drives the wheels. So the engine I'll start again. The engine isn't actually driving the wheels in that scenario, and that's what's called a series hybrid. What you may find yourself is maybe, say, going uphill or accelerating hard, and the car thinks, oh, I need a little bit more power. So what it then does is it starts up the engine to run in conjunction with the electric motor to both drive the front wheels, and that becomes then a parallel hybrid, okay. So it's a very clever system, the way that it all works. Right, now Dacia say fuel economy in this, the car is capable of over 60 miles per gallon on the combined cycle. Yesterday on the way down, considering that I leave my house and go on to the M25, and then I go on to the M26 and then the M20 to Folkestone, and from Calais to here, bar the last 40 kilometres was all motorway, and I was averaging 55 miles to the gallon out of the car at a steady 130 kilometres an hour. So 60 miles per gallon on a combined cycle, I think, is very, very achievable with the car. That's another thing I love about it, its efficiency. And it's also capable, as I say, I mentioned earlier about towing as well. It's up to 1 tonne on a brake trailer you can tow with this engine as well. So sorry, I should have mentioned that at the back there. CO2 emissions, 105 grams per kilometre, so a little bit more than the Symbios, which was under the 100 grams per kilometre, but still very, very low, especially for this type of vehicle. But that is a very clever setup, and that is a very efficient setup, and it's a brilliant, brilliant drivetrain for this style of car. Right, let's get the car out onto the roads. What do we think? Well, it's 155 horsepower, as the name would suggest. It's capable of 0 to 60 in 9.7 seconds, and it'll top out 112 miles an hour where permitted. So it's fair to say that speed isn't the Bigster's, sort of selling point in that sense, but it doesn't need to be. It's a family car. It's fast enough, I would suggest. I don't think you need much quicker than this, in fairness, but it is very efficient. That's the one thing that I said to you earlier. It's quite an efficient engine, this, and the way the hybrid system works is quite clever. So I say it will push itself to drive on electric power as often as it can, You know, so if it's not, you know, you don't have to do anything. I have to make that clear. You know, there's no buttons to press. You don't need to get into different modes or anything like that to make the car like, for instance, now it's just flicked into EV mode now on its own accord. I'm not doing anything. So what has happened is the engine has been putting some charge into the battery. The battery's now got enough power. It says, well, I can switch the engine off and I can drive the motor with the power that I've got here, the electric motor, to drive the front wheels. And it was doing it on the way down here yesterday on the motorway at speeds of up to sort of like 80 miles an hour. Well, sorry, 80 kilometres an hour. It's just gone onto the petrol engine. You know, 80 kilometres an hour. And then when you go onto the sort of the big open motorways at 130 kilometres an hour, which is about 80 miles an hour, it was doing the same. You know, there were times maybe when you're going downhill, you'd see the EV light come on, the engine would be off. And I've been averaging, you know, yesterday I averaged 55 to the gallon. You know, this morning, this afternoon, it's dropped down to about 48, but yesterday was 55 to the gallon, all the way from my house to Surrey, all the way down to Versailles in France. So there we go. So what's it like? Well, yesterday was all motorway work. And one thing that I found yesterday with the car was there's some wind noise comes from these mirrors. That's the one thing, that was the one glaringly obvious thing from it. It was quite noisy. Now, it was spectacularly windy yesterday. That is what I will say. Especially as you come through northern France from Calais as you're coming down towards Paris, you know, you get some of those flat open lands in the north of France, and the wind really was up yesterday. But there was no doubt about it. You could certainly hear a lot of wind noise coming from round about the mirrors. Road noise was fine. The only time road noise really bothered me, or it was really made itself known, was there's a section of the M25 between the A3 and Leatherhead, which is just down from my house. It's just concrete and it's horrible. But every car that I've driven on that road, you know, is noisy on it. But that's the only time it's sort of like it was noticeable in here, which is a big difference to the Renault Symbioz, which also uses this chassis, also uses this drivetrain that I also reviewed the other week. I found that car quite disappointing with its road noise, and I drove that car in France. So, you know, again, it's a relatively straightforward comparison to make. This is a much quieter car when it comes to road noise than the Renault, no doubt about it in my mind. I also really like this hybrid system, I have to say. You know, the more I've been spending time with it, the more I'm really getting used to it. And as I say, in terms of this gearbox, you don't really notice this whole sort of like 6-speed, but 4 are against this thing and 2 are in the electric motor. You don't notice it. You just sort of put your foot down and let the car sort itself out, and that's exactly what it does. And it's absolutely delightful at times. As I say, it's no firecracker. Of course not, you know. So you're just accelerating out of that roundabout there, you just get that little flare of revs up, and that's it. That's all it is. Now, how does it handle? Well, that's the interesting thing, because there's no doubt in my mind that the Duster is a bit more wieldy. The one thing the Bigster can't do is disguise the fact that it's, well, bigger. You know, there's more pronounced body roll in the car. You know, it certainly leans more as you go into the bend. You know, there are certain times, you know, tighter bends where it will wash out a little bit more at the front. You know, as I say, the weight of the car, the extra weight of the car, sort of like, you know, almost transfers across onto sort of like the front tire that's loaded up and just pushes it through the bend, you know, in an understeer fashion rather than getting you round in a tight, controlled manner. But you know what? Slow down. That's all I'll say to that. Don't try and hurry it. And actually, what it then does is it settles into sort of like a nice gait, a nice sort of like, you know, sort of like speed, a nice rhythm, if you like, where the car just feels comfortable. There isn't the sort of like patterning of suspension and tyres that I got on the Symbioz last week. The ride quality is far nicer, you know, so the tuning of the suspension is way nicer. You know, Dacia obviously don't do this whole faux sporting thing that Renault do with their Esprit Alpines, and it's all the better for it. It's a really comfortable car. Yes, longer sort of like undulations on motorway, you can maybe feel a little bit more body movement, a little bit more, you know, kind of porpoising, but again, as I say, just back off a little bit and it soon quells it down. This is a really nice car. The other thing about it is the steering. The steering, it's light enough at low speed, and I found that going through Versailles. And the other thing about it as well, the slab-sided nature of the car makes it very easy to place. The other thing as well is, because as I say, it's that more SUV-like driving position, you really see the extremities of the car. So I can see the end of the bonnet, and I've got the seat in its lowest position, and I'm not a tall man, as you know. So, you know, that's the one thing that really, really shines through, is how easy. And I'm coming through these little French villages in a right-hand drive car on the wrong side of the road, and it's not causing me any sweat whatsoever. It's absolutely fine. You know, it's really easy to thread through these streets because you can see all the extremities of the car, the flat sides of the car, you know, make it nice and easy to position. As I say, you can see the front corners of the bonnet. These are particularly bad little roads here. You know, there's lots of potholes down here. There's some cobbles on the inside. This is coping really, really well. This is the type of car I would bring the family to France in. I mean, we come every year in our big Jeep Grand Cherokee, which is obviously lovely, you know, but easily done in one of these. There's enough space in here, it's fuel efficient, it's nice to drive, it's quick enough, it's comfortable, and I can see out of it. Yeah, as I say, it's not quite as wieldy as the smaller Duster, but you would expect that because the Duster's, well, smaller. This is bigger, but that's why you buy the Bigster, because you need a bigger car. The trade-off would be maybe something that doesn't ride quite as nice, that maybe, you know, sort of like has that more sporting bent to it, and I just don't want that in a car like this. The only fault that I've got with the car in terms of driving it is that footrest, as I say. It's just too far up the transmission tunnel. You know, I'd like it to be sort of like another 2-3 inches down into the footwell. It would just be much more comfortable. As it is, I just don't use it. I just let my feet down, which makes me wonder how the manual would be. That's the only thing that's in the back of my mind. If you said, oh no, I'm going to have the manual one, Brian, go for a good drive in it, because I don't know how the footwell's going to be in that. Just make sure you're comfortable with it. But other than that, I'm really struggling to find real fault with this car. I really am. And you know, it's just such, it just, you know, it does what it needs to do and nothing else. It doesn't go overboard, and therefore it's not compromised in other ways. It just seems to tick all the boxes that you want from a C-sector, 5-seat, 5-door, family crossover that's going to be nice, easy to live with, easy to drive, and dare I suggest, quite cheap to run and cheap to buy in the first place. I'm struggling to fault it on driving, I really am. It's lovely. Now, pricing, okay, depends really what you want, because you can pretty much get a combination of everything. There's 3 trim levels available in the car, like I said. You start with the Expression, and then you go up to either the Extreme or the Journey. And the Extreme, as I say, is a bit more sort of like off-roady look. The Journey, like this one's a bit more, did I suggest, urban orientated. So it depends on what you want. But you can get the Expression and the Extreme in all 3 drive lines, okay? The Journey just comes in 2. So let me just explain what they are now. So you start with the Expression in 2-wheel drive manual form with that 1.3 litre engine, £25,215 to get into one of these. There you go. And then you move up to 27,495 for the 4-wheel drive version in Expression trim. And then if you want the Expression with the 155 hybrid, then it's £28,190. And that's what I mean, for a full hybrid, you know, in that trim level, that's thousands of pounds less than some of the competition. The Extreme, now that starts at 26,715 for, again, that 2-wheel drive manual. Then you jump up to 28,965 for the manual 4-wheel drive, and then 29,690 for the hybrid 155. The Journey only gets the 2-wheel drive mild hybrid, or this 155, okay, so you don't get that all-wheel drive version of the Journey. And prices for those two are 26,465 for this trim level with the two-wheel drive 1.2 litre engine with manual gearbox, or £29,440 for the 155 hybrid in the Journey model that this one is. This one I've got's got two options. It's metallic paint, the indigo blue, and the two-tone, which takes it up to around about £31,000, which is pretty much where a lot of the competition are starting from. That's what I mean. I just think it's incredible value for money, and there's a huge amount on the car as standard, as I've said. You know, dare I suggest, everything you need, nothing that you don't, is how I would put it in some ways. The only maybe disappointing thing I think with Dacia is the warranty. It's only 3 years, 60,000 miles, although on the batteries on the hybrid it's 8 years, 100,000 miles, like you get with most hybrids or electric cars. But still, a 3-year warranty I think is a little bit disappointing, given where some of the Chinese brands and, you know, things like Hyundai and Kia are as well. But the argument says that the car is less money to buy in the first place, so you could put an extended warranty on it if you need. But it'd be nice to see a bit more confidence from Dacia with a bigger warranty right at the start. Now, like I say, this is a busy marketplace. It's Europe's biggest selling market, this C sector crossover slash SUV sector. So, you know, there's a lot of competition here, so there's no point in going through absolutely every one, but there's some worth mentioning, obviously. Now, Volkswagen Group, you've got things such as the Skoda Kodiaq, the Volkswagen T-Roc, okay? And then you've got things such as the Kia Niro, the Ford Kuga, the Hyundai Kona. They'll all want a slice of the action too. Renault, now as I say, obviously Dacia Group's owned by Renault, and of course there's the Symbios, which is their entrant into this market space. And there's an argument to say, and you can obviously get the Renault with this drivetrain. You can't get it with four-wheel drive, however. You want four-wheel drive, you've got to have the Dacia. But, you know, the Renault, you could argue, it's a bit more plush, it's a bit more that, but then we're talking about a family car. And one of the criticisms I had of the Renault Symbios was they tried to make it sporty and almost too, and it just didn't really work for me. This is where this car really, really wins because of the practicality of it as a family car, because it's more comfortable and it's just more practical with having kids and stuff like. Now, obviously, there's some Chinese brands have moved into this market space as well, so we've got to mention a couple of those as well, such things as the Moda E5. There's also the deep breath GWM Haval Jolly and Pro, though I genuinely wouldn't bother with that, not when you could buy one of these for the same money. Genuinely don't know why you'd buy that when you could buy this. And then of course there's such things such as the BYD Seal U DMI, which is a little bit more money, but it's a little bit of a bigger car almost as well. And of course that's quite a decent hybrid as well. But like I say, it's a big marketplace, there's plenty of players in it, and of course we haven't even mentioned the Nissan Qashqai, which was sort of the originator of this marketplace, and that's a car I'm also going to be reviewing soon as well. So as I say, the Dacia is moving into a market that they've not occupied before. There's a lot of established players in there, so hopefully people will see the sort of like the core brand values of Dacia being applied into that sector of the market and how useful, dare I suggest, some of those can be. There was a part of me a little bit worried about this car. There was a part of me was a bit concerned that Dacia pushing up market meant that it would forget some of the core brand values and forget why people bought Dacias in the first place. Because as I say, to me the brand has always represented just sensible, everyday cars for everyday families doing everyday type of jobs. The school run, driving to and from the supermarket, you know, sort of like driving you to and from the office, to the railway station, going on holiday. And that was the reason why I brought the car on such a long journey. I really wanted to see whether or not this car could be used like that. And the thing that I was concerned about was if they pushed too far up market, would they lose sight of what their core customers really wanted from a Dacia? There was also another worry that it was just going to be a big Duster, you know, because the Duster's such a good car. What could it possibly bring new to the marketplace? You know, and again, there's a bit more space in it, there's no doubt about that. But you know, the Duster's a great little car. But I had nothing to fear, because what we've got here is another winner from Dacia. It still retains all the stuff why we buy Dacias, you know, the usability, the practicality. And when I'm talking about that, I don't just mean interior space. I'm talking about the fact that surfaces can be wiped clean, materials are made from recyclable materials, and you know, it's well built, it's solid, it's dependable, it just keeps going. And now of course, because of this hybrid drivetrain, it's efficient, and dare I suggest that keeps running costs down, which keeps your costs of motoring down, which is going to be important for families, especially in this day and age. So maybe in some respects what we're left with is exactly a car that I was slightly frightened that it would be, a bigger Duster. But maybe that's not such a bad thing, because the Duster's such a good car that what they've now got is all of those attributes in a bigger car, plus a few more things that you might not have expected the Duster to be able to cope with quite as well. Yes, there are cars in this market that offer slightly plusher interiors. Yes, there are cars that maybe offer a few other little bits and niceties on them and things, but you'll be paying extra for that. And dare I suggest, do you really need to? So what we're left with at the end of the day is the best family SUV since, well, the Duster. Thank you for watching another road test review on House of Cars. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please make sure you subscribe to the House of Cars channel, and then when you've done that, press the little bell button that's down below, because that's the way you'll be notified when the next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you have enjoyed this week's video from sunny France, make sure you give it a little thumbs up, and of course, as always, make sure you you let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Have you bought a Bigster? What made you go and buy it rather than, say, a Nissan Qashqai or a Ford Kuga or a Skoda Kodiaq? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Is there something you don't like about the car? Have you traded up from a Duster? Did you need something a bit bigger? Let me know in the comment section down below. Now remember, if you're a fan of social media, then you'll find me on Instagram. If you're a fan of the gram, I'm there, and it's at House of Cars 1973. And remember, whether or not it is a new car or an old car, a small car or a large car, a slow car or a fast car, you'll find them all here in the House of Cars. Thanks again for watching. Thank you for your continued support. I'll see you again soon.